Hello students, welcome to class again. I hope you all are doing good. Today we are going to do a lesson from your reader text. The name of the lesson is A Bond of Love by Kenneth Anderson. In the story, A Bond of Love, the title itself indicates that it is a bonding between someone. Here, it is a bonding between an animal and a human. It is written by a famous nature enthusiast, hunter, writer, and wildlife chronicler named Kenneth Anderson. Before we go any further with the story, let us know something more about the author. Kenneth Anderson was born on 8 March 1910 in British India. He was a British writer and hunter. He wrote books on his adventures in the jungles of South India. Mr. Anderson was also a nature enthusiast and chronicler of wildlife. His hunting expeditions involved several close encounters with man-eating tigers, rogue elephants, leopards, and other wild animals. He died on 30th August 1974 in Bangalore, Karnataka. The story in your text begins in this way. I want to tell you about Bruno, my wife's pet sloth bear. The I here is writer Kenneth Anderson, and Bruno is a baby sloth bear, and my wife, obviously the wife of Mr. Kenneth Anderson. I got him for her by accident. So Bruno, the sloth bear, became a part of the family through an accident. It was not pre-planned or it was never an intention. 2 years ago, we were passing through the sugarcane fields near Mysore. The we here is Mr. Kenneth Anderson and his friends, and as they were passing through a sugarcane field near Mysore, they saw some people. These people were driving away wild pigs from the fields by shooting at them. The farmer or the villagers, they tried to protect their sugarcane fields by shooting at the pigs that were infesting the fields. Some were shot and some escaped. Some of the pigs were shot, but some managed to escape. We thought that everything was over when suddenly a black sloth bear came out panting in the hot sun. When Mr. Kenneth Anderson and his friends thought that everything was over and they tried to go back or return back on their journey, they suddenly saw something, a black sloth bear, and it came panting out from the sugarcane fields in the hot sun. Panting means taking quick, short breaths. Now you can see the mother bear there, trying to come out from the sugarcane field, and the baby sloth bear, that is Bruno, clinging to its mother. It's lovely. The mother is very protective over its baby. So you can see, and the story begins from here. Now, what happened after that? Kenneth Anderson will never shoot a harmless wild bear, but his friend had a different opinion. He shot the mother bear immediately and thus orphaned Bruno. And this is how Bruno was brought to the Anderson family. When Kenneth Anderson brought Bruno home, he gave it to his wife. His wife immediately tied a ribbon around his neck and christened him as Bruno. So orphaned, then innocent little Bruno became a part of the Anderson family. He was excessively loved and cared by Mrs. Kenneth Anderson, and he too loved them as his parents. Bruno played with the children of the tenants, and he grew as a happy little bear. He could eat almost anything given to him. According to the author, everything is the right word. Bruno ate porridge made from any ingredients, vegetables, fruit, nuts, meat, especially pork, and rice and curry, regardless of any spices there, and chilies, bread, eggs, chocolates, sweets, pudding, ice cream, etc. etc. And as for drink, He drank milk, tea, coffee, lime juice, aerated water, buttermilk, beer, alcoholic liquor, and in fact anything liquid. And it all went down with relish. That is, he enjoyed everything with delight. Bruno's eating habits had landed him into serious trouble twice. The first one was when he swallowed barium carbonate, poison kept by the author in his library to kill rats and mice. Bruno was paralyzed and he was immediately rushed to the hospital to the veterinary doctor. The doctor had to give him 2 injections to cure him from his paralysis state. The second was when he drank a whole gallon of engine oil kept by the author to treat termites. Now, this time nothing happened to Bruno. So, Bruno can digest everything. Thus, Bruno grew up in the love and care of the Anderson family. He was a very playful bear. He played with everyone, with the tenants' children, with Mr. Anderson and Mrs. Anderson. But the person who loved him more was Mrs. Anderson, who called him lovingly as Baba, meaning a little boy. Baba can perform a number of tricks. At the command, Baba wrestle or Baba box, he would vigorously tackle anyone who came forward for a rough and tumble. Give him a stick and say, Baba, hold gun, and he would point a stick at you. Isn't it interesting that a bear can do such things? And then, when you ask him, Baba, where's baby? He would immediately produce and cradle affectionately a stump of wood which he had carefully concealed or hidden in his straw bed. But Bruno was getting bigger and bigger, and he has even outgrown the 2 Alsatian dogs of Mr. Kenneth Anderson. And he became a threat to the tenants' children. Thus, Bruno cannot be kept in human environment any longer. With a lot of advice from family and friends, Mrs. Kenneth Anderson finally agreed and decided to give Bruno to the protection of the zoo. And thus, Bruno landed up in the zoo. But Mrs. Kenneth Anderson could not live without Bruno, nor Bruno could live without her. Both of them refused food and remained sad and unhappy for days. When Mrs. Kenneth Anderson visited the zoo, Bruno could recognize her from afar. He howled with happiness and she ran up to him, petted him through the bars, and he stood on his head in delight. So, this was a kind of relationship between Bruno and Mrs. Anderson. They loved one another so much, their bonding was so strong that they could not live without one another. When Bruno was brought back home, a special island was made for him. And the most interesting part about the island is how Mrs. Kenneth Anderson traveled to the island. A rope was tied to the overhanging branch of a mango tree with a loop at its end. Putting one foot in the loop, she kicks off with the other to bridge the 6-foot gap that constitutes the width of the surrounding pit in the island. The return journey was also made in the same way. Now, who can say that Baba or the sloth bear, the wild bear, has no sense of affection, no memory, and no individual characteristics? We can never say that wild animals cannot understand or cannot recognize by reading this story. So you can now analyze it and think about what kind of a bear Bruno is and how can you relate him to other animals. So children, I hope you liked the story. But the most important thing now is that you need to find out the theme, the central idea of the story, and the message here. The message in the story is very strong. Wild animals can think, can behave like any pet animals, like you have a dog at home. If you tame a wild animal, it could be as loving and caring. It can recognize you, it can understand you. So that was what happened with Bruno or Baba. However, another strong message is that wild animals should be kept to their habitat, and that is the best thing for them. Taming a wild animal is another thing, but locking him up and caging him up is again a kind of a crime or a very selfish and inhuman act. So I hope you have understood the lesson and I want you all to find out the characters in the story, and we'll be back for more stories of this kind in the next class.